Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 4th year since we held the first East African Banking and Microfinance Forum in the year 2018. As we come to the conclusion of the 4th edition, I thank you most sincerely for honoring our invitation to be with us in this conference, despite your very busy schedules. We hope that this forum lives up to its promise of providing the stage for African and international banking and microfinance practitioners to share insights and latest industry best practices. We met in November last year. When we met in November last year, the world was trying its best to deal with the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. A year later, the pandemic continues to cause havoc, disrupting livelihoods and ravaging our economies. Luckily, the world has responded in a very positive way by creating new and innovative methods of doing business. There is no doubt that the architecture of the banking industry has changed so fundamentally that it is difficult to imagine service delivery without digital technology. These changes have impacted the industry at multiple levels and led to the need for remedial measures and innovative solutions with an urgent imperative for entrepreneurial transformation. But I'm also reminded of the old saying attributed to Sir Winston Churchill, and I quote, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." As we grapple with the new normal of self-isolation, remote working, and social distancing, we need to draw lessons from the pandemic and then use these lessons to prioritize actions to enhance business value today and build strategic resilience for tomorrow, and indeed prepare for the next global crisis, because for sure, we know this is not the end. While the pandemic continues to wreak havoc, we continue to be optimistic that sooner than later, it will be over. Despite all the limitations posed by the pandemic, I'm happy to share that we were able to introduce a hybrid element in this year's conference. In addition, we continue to expand the geographical coverage of the forum as well as frontiers of possibilities. For example, this year's conference was attended by more than 500 people compared to about 300 people in 2020. Further, we had registrations from more than 50 countries around the world. I think you agree with me when I say that the future of this forum is bright, and I invite you to remain with us in this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's conference was gearing up for recovery and growth, building a more resilient banking sector. This theme was driven by two factors. First, COVID-19 has been with us for close to 2 years now, and is likely to remain with us a little longer than previously projected. The banking industry has weathered the storm quite well, inshallah, but it is time to focus on playing our part in stopping the hemorrhage and contribute to economic recovery and growth. Second, in order to play an effective role in the process, we have to build strong, resilient, and sustainable systems within our banking industry. Let me take this early opportunity to congratulate all the speakers who contributed and navigated remarkably well around this theme. I am indeed delighted to have been part of the audience that spent the last 2 days listening to wonderful people from around the world. We are meeting at the same time with COP26, which is focused on one of the biggest issues of our time, climate change. In this regard, permit me to salute our partners, EIB, for being designated the EU Climate Bank, and therefore playing a central role in shaping the global dialogue on climate action and environmental sustainability. On this issue of climate change and global warming, we have EIB to thank for setting the tone during the session on climate change and green finance this morning. It was an excellent way to elevate this important conversation in our programs. We are beginning to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, which promises a convergence of the physical, digital, and the biological worlds. The speed, breadth, and depth of this revolution is forcing us to think how we live, work, how organizations create value, and even what it means to be human. The platform we are creating in hosting the East African Banking Forum gives us the opportunity to be part of this emerging discourse. People attending this conference are leaders in their own spheres of influence. I want to submit that this is the time we have to show courage and ambition in order to assist our communities overcome the great challenges of today. To my African brothers and sisters, the COVID-19 crisis has given us an opportunity of a lifetime to hit the reset button and reboot to a whole new paradigm and chart the destiny of our people. Let us not waste a good crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me at this juncture to mention a number of people to whom we owe a debt of gratitude for the success of this event. One, our partners, the European Investment Bank. We thank you most sincerely for pioneering this forum, which you continue to support and give invaluable input. Two, the management of TDB Group and the entire team for the support and guidance throughout the preparation process. Then three, a special thanks to Professor Jigona Dungu, the former governor of the Central Bank of Kenya and current executive director of African Economic Research Consortium, for gracing this conference and sharing his perspectives. All the speakers and the panelists who have done an excellent job to help us unpack the theme of this conference and navigate through the many complex issues around the journey of economic recovery and sustainability. The DMG team, led by the Vice President, Madame Devi, who worked tirelessly and lead a hand to ensure that we succeed. All the CEOs of banks and MFIs in the region and beyond for their continued collaboration and the support for this event. All the participants, you have been wonderful throughout. Our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. James Wabogo, you did an excellent job of coordinating the sessions, the speakers, ensuring that everything flows. Last but not least, the joint organizing committee comprising of teams from TDB and EIB. To the joint teams, thank you very much for your dedication, the valuable contributions, and the incredible teamwork. Finally, let me say that TDB and EIB have a shared commitment to be effective agents of change. As an annual event, the East African Banking Forum is a good example of what can be achieved through mutually beneficial relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, allow me to reiterate that the East African Banking and Microfinance Forum is now firmly an annual event. With or without the pandemic, we are committed to continue supporting this event in the years to come. Having said that, we hope that the world will soon come to normal so that we can physically meet in 2022 during the next annual conference. Therefore, if you share in the visions of TDB and EIB, I suggest that you make a date with us around the same time next year. We intend to keep our promise to give you a world-class conference. I thank you all for attending and look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon to everyone. Dear colleagues, it is an honor for me to participate in this wrapping up session today, and particularly doing it with my friend, James Kabuga. We have had a very intensive couple of days, and many topics have been discussed. I will attempt to highlight some of the topics that you've been covering, and also to present the point of view of the European Investment Bank in some of these key areas. Let me start where you started, and it is with the CEO of TDB, Atmasu Tadesse, and he called for further stimulus packages to support cash-strapped SMEs. This is very important because, unfortunately, debt distress has remained a prominent issue for most banks in the region. He also spoke about the greening of the financial sector. And this is, of course, very much linked, as James has just mentioned, to the current COP26 that is happening in Glasgow and all the discussions that are happening there. And here, as public banks, but also we hope that commercial banks feel the same, we all have a duty to be part of the building back better efforts that come out of this crisis. We need to come out reinforced and with more resilience in the banking systems and also resilience in our societies. We have also heard about the deterioration in banks' assets quality. These several bankers' associations shared with us. The importance of regulation and cybersecurity, all these being issues that need to be addressed with urgency. Local banks have seen a lot of restructurings of their portfolio in their portfolios, and they are feeling that there is limited funding capacity and, unfortunately, sometimes less appetite for risk. There is also an understanding about the relevance of foreign remittances and how these have been supporting domestic consumption in specific countries, and Somalia was mentioned in this context, and particularly during the pandemic. Over the sessions, DFIs were requested to support local banks and equity funds so that they can continue lending to small and medium-sized enterprises, even under the current unfavorable market conditions. We have heard loud and clear as a message how the application of blending instruments for de-risking is very valuable in terms of supporting and increasing this risk appetite that needs to be reinforced. We have heard how local currency and the potential use of TCX as a currency hedging mechanism is very valuable. And we have heard that technical assistance also to support the capacity of the small and medium-sized enterprises themselves are very welcome instruments. It has been discussed about capital markets development, and particularly with regard to SDG-themed bonds and green bond issuances. These are areas, and I hope everybody walks out of these sessions or these 2 days with this very clear message that you can count on us, on TDB and on the EIB, if you are thinking of issuing themed bonds, green bonds, or bonds that are linked to one or the other of the Sustainable Development Goals. We will be very happy to act as facilitators, to mobilize technical assistance. We know what it takes. We know it is complex to set up, but also in terms of reporting and accountability. And for this, we can help. What we also know, and the EIB was the first issuer of green bonds and still a major issuer of green bonds, is that it is worthwhile. So please do count on us. We have also heard from the EU ambassador, my friend Henriette Geiger, and she recognized the toll that the pandemic has had on the Kenyan economy in particular, and in terms of loss of employment. This is livelihoods, this is families that are suffering. She also mentioned how the pandemic has been a major setback in terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals targets and how education was hit the hardest. I find it was also very important how the EU delegation in Nairobi expressed the support for Kenya's digitalization initiatives, and particularly with regard to the digital transformation of the financial sector. But also, of course, everything that has to do with climate change and support to every effort for adaptation, for mitigation, for reduction of emissions, and for energy efficiency. There has been, in fact, quite a lot of discussion about green finance. We have heard public authorities beginning to increase their focus on climate issues, in particular in the financial sector. We had the Kenya Central Bank issuing guidance on climate risk, and we were honored to have hosted the Deputy Governor of CBK for this morning session. We have heard commercial banks recognizing that they need to step up on this topic, but that this is a steep learning curve ahead, and therefore that they want to make sure that they have the support that is needed for this. And then the question of technical assistance and other ways of collaborating become extremely important. And we have heard banks saying they want to deepen the relationship with European Investment Bank, but with the very high requirements that EIB is bringing forward on climate, technical assistance is going to be needed. The message was very clear. On digitalization, we have seen that COVID-19, the pandemic, has fast-tracked the need for financial institutions to review their strategies, and they all agree on the need to renew the existing infrastructure and look at ways in which digital access in the banking services can be scaled up. We heard from Deloitte on how capacity enhancements are needed, both in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of human capital development. There are clearly also elements with regard to trust, and this is this trust that needs to be built amongst the networks, the fintechs, the telecoms mobile operators, and financial institutions, and particularly with regard to the expansion of digital banking services. So where does the EIB stand in all of this? What is our take? What I can tell you is we will continue to provide long-term funding, also in local currency, and always wanting to make sure that the financial advantage and the long-term maturities are passed on to the small and medium-sized enterprises. We have seen that as a result of the adverse impact of the pandemic on SMEs, the EIB stepped up in its intermediated SME financing, and we have now also covered working capital funding and the investment needs resulting from the lack of consumer demand and the significant disruption in supply chains that we have heard so much about in this forum. We established in 2020 a new COVID-19 rapid response regional facility for Sub-Saharan Africa, and we have been already signing a number of loans with banks in the East Africa region in this regard. I had the pleasure personally to be in Kigali now 2 weeks ago, and there we signed with Bank of Kigali and with KCB Rwanda And they are really extremely valuable operations in both of them with a very strong gender angle, reaching out to small and medium-sized enterprises that are either owned or have a high proportion of women in their management. So it is important that we build on these additional flexibilities that we have managed to put in place to respond to your demands. It is clear for us that going forward, there will have to be more blending into our thematic facilities. This is when we're talking about lines of credit for climate action or for gender, and that this will need to be combined with new products, such as the first loss guarantees that we are now often offering to you. It's an offer, it's for you to take or not, alongside our finance. What we have seen is that the capital relief that this can bring and the push in your ambition to reach out to certain segments, these first loss guarantees can be very valuable for you. You will see the EIB very active on climate, and James was mentioning we are the EU bank, the EU climate bank. So everything that has to do with climate action and environmental sustainability, we will want to see more of this happening. And for this, there will be technical assistance lines available to support you so that you can build up your capacities to identify the appropriate projects and to green your own lending portfolio. And lastly, with regard to the digitalization challenge, as you have heard today, right now in the previous session, the EIB is going to be reviewing the results and recommendations of the ongoing feasibility study to see how we can make ourselves useful to you so that we can accompany your ambitions. So as you see, there is a lot to be done. We will build on what has worked. We will build on the feedback that we get from you, and we will incorporate all these innovations to respond to the specific market needs. So there's busy times ahead. Let me conclude. Before I go, I do want to convey my very sincere thanks to TDB. They have been always, and for a very long time, a fantastic partner. They are the best partner we could think of for this annual SME Banking and Microfinance Forum. And really, not just the institution, each one of the colleagues and friends of TDB in their teams and how we have worked together to put this event together. I also want to thank the AERC. I want to thank UNECA, Making Finance Work for Africa, the Central Bank of Kenya, and all the speakers and participants who have given their time and who have shared their knowledge and best practices. This is what this forum is about, and all of you have been very generous in this sense. I do hope, like James has also mentioned, that we will meet again in 2022, and that this will not be virtually, that it will be that we can be together in the room, that we can benefit from a much more personal interaction and of the networking. In the meantime, unfortunately, we have to do with what we have. Virtual, at least, is keeping us together, if not physically together. And it has proved that where there is the will to continue cooperating and to continue furthering with the partnerships, we can still do it. It's not as pleasant. Next year will be better, but at least we have been able to continue. So I'll stop here. I thank all of you very much. And knowing that it is Friday afternoon already, I wish you all a lovely weekend. And I think I now pass over to James. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James Kabuga and Ms. Maria Shaw-Barragan for those closing remarks. Dear participants, the time has come to say farewell. We sincerely appreciate your presence with us over the last 2 days. We also trust that the forum has added value to you and sparked thoughts and conversations that will help our region build back better. It has been my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremonies, and on behalf of the TDB and EIB Joint Organizing Committee, I look forward to welcoming you again next year for the 5th East Africa Banking and Microfinance Forum in 2022. Take care and have a blessed evening.